Welcome back. Now, the development economist Prof.Gosh is of the opinion that the bailout package of the International Monetary Fund makes no macroeconomic sense, as the policies will exacerbate the frustrations of the people and small and medium-scale businesses throughout the imposition of various rate hikes. She made these remarks during a special discussion with Indivari Amwatta at Hyde Park on Derana 24. Further expressing his remarks during the panel discussion, Senior Professor in Economics at the University of Colombo, Professor Sirima Labberatne believes that the country's only way forward lies within the creation of an investment-friendly environment.
But are you suggesting, Professor Labberatne, if we do not comply with IMF expectations to meet the requirements as a prerequisite for the IMF bailout arrangement, that there is any solution for Sri Lanka in the interim?
Going with the IMF program would help us to achieve a sustainable solution because of the nothing other than this improving the international image of Sri Lanka, so that we would be able to attract investment and then to work on that. But there too we have a long way to go reforming our policies, regulatory mechanism to make this country a investment center. Only with that we will come out of the crisis, and not with the IMF program.
I'd also like to ask you, what do you think we could do in terms of meeting those IMF requirements? I think you pointed out where Sri Lanka missed in expanding the tax base to other factors, but there are requirements that the government has to meet in terms of fulfilling IMF bailout package prerequisite.
Why I like the IMF program basically is that Sri Lanka does not have a good track record in adopting a consistent policy package, regulatory reform package, and that's why, because for the last 25-30 years we didn't have any reform package, purposefully and bold reform package. We had only twice in our history, 77 and 89, and after that we abandoned our reform package. We were feeling good, and even people asked, okay, prices have to be reduced, and the government promised, okay, we will reduce the fuel prices, we will give you electricity at low cost, and all these things we have agreed with our politicians. So these are basically a political problem. So all these problems got accumulated to this point. Whether it is this government or any other government, they have to respond to accumulated problems. So that obviously they are going to be a problem because the public has to fasten their belt. But at the same time, I would say that there is another side to these things, that is the reform side, and reform side should come in to make things easier for. But I also know that IMF does not consider the political repercussions, social repercussions of their program, and how public is going to respond to that. And if things go worse, of course, there's a 50-50 chance and that you would fall in this side or the other side.
Let's just also try to bring comparison from other nations that not just have fallen into further crisis, but also other countries that were supported by an IMF program, and what they did different and how different their situation was for them to benefit from an IMF program.
When they work is when they are part of a strategy that the government has elaborated on its own with broad political support. That is not the case today. You have an unelected government that more or less reflects the same interest groups that were in the previous government, against which there was a very large people's movement. To impose on a citizenry that thought that they had managed to actually undo some of the damage that their political leaders were doing on them. And I think corruption was only one of the concerns. It was really economic mismanagement. To follow on that with equally brutal, if not more brutal policies, and tell them that, well, now you have to tighten your belt, when their belts have already been tightened, when they know that the elites are getting away with it, when illicit financial flows continue, there is no wealth tax to speak of, export receipts are still not being repatriated, all of these things are known. That is a recipe for massive unrest. It cannot generate growth. It can only generate greater suffering. What is even worse is that because it doesn't generate growth, it's not going to attract the foreign private investment that is expected. What you would get is people coming and buying up your companies at bargain basement prices, fire sales of domestic assets. That's not what you want. You want productive assets being generated. Think what you do when you raise electricity prices and all of these prices. You raise the costs for small and medium businesses. They're the ones who are doing the exporting. Their costs go up. And the only way you can counter that is with a further devaluation of the currency, which is now going to be a market-determined exchange rate. And then that market-determined exchange rate will generate further cost inflation. I mean, it is a strategy that makes absolutely no macroeconomic sense.